I remember when my best friend met my mum for the first time, my mum dropped her home.
Yeah.
And then the next day she came into school and was like, so your mum's black then?
I'm Emma.
And I'm Nicole.
And this is Mixed Up Podcast, a podcast about belonging and identity. And on the show, we talk about all sorts, from politics to food to hair, pop culture, and more.
Becca Dudley is a DJ and a TV presenter who's been working in the music industry for over a decade. She is a huge advocate of reggae and dancehall music, and she set up the video platform Deadly Official to highlight the musicians and artists that don't get the recognition that they deserve.
When we started this podcast, it was the first of its kind, an accessible take on growing up, straddling multiple identities, and being mixed.
It opened the door for mixed-race people to come together and talk. But as we grew, our audience grew with us, and we found that these conversations held something for everyone. I'm Nicole, your American host, who's been living in London now for over a decade, and have probably picked up a few too many British expressions along the way. I am Ghanaian and Filipino and grew up in Virginia. I am a writer and a podcaster, Natch. I am also a fashion columnist and a content creator.
And I'm your other host, Emma, the one with the British accent. And I am of Jamaican British heritage. For my day job, I'm a sustainability consultant, a slow fashion OG, and also a public speaker. A bit of a mouthful, I know.
Thank you so much for having me. I've said this to you like off mic, but I'm like low-key big fan. So I've been listening to this podcast for years, man, and it's given me like a lot of comfort and like validation over the years. So
Oh, that's amazing.
I'm excited, but I'm also nervous. So
yeah.
bear with me.
So yeah, let's get into it. I want to kick off by asking you a little bit about your family, your ancestry, and I guess, yeah, like how you feel about your own identity. I know like your grandfather, I've read he was like born and grew up in Jamaica.
Yeah, so my granddad, born and raised in Jamaica in a place called Anato Bay, which is St Mary. So that's my mum's dad. So my mum is Jamaican and British, and my dad is German and British. And over the years, we've become kind of just mainly just in touch with my mum's side of the family, so the black side.
Interesting.
So my immediate family and, you know, whoever we will spend birthdays and Christmas with and that kind of thing is all black and mixed except for my dad's. Yeah. So my experience has been like super mixed, I would say, growing up. And so I've always felt mixed, but obviously I have blonde hair and very white skin, and people do not see me as mixed race at all.
Yeah.
Like, very rarely. Sometimes people that have the same mix as me are like, they can see it. But yeah, it's been a journey that I'm still navigating.
Yeah, I think we all love it.
Yeah, we all are. I mean, that is one of the questions that I had for you, isn't like, what has that looked like for you? Obviously, when you were younger versus now when you're, how old are you now?
33.
Yeah. So in your 30s, I feel like I've changed a lot since we even started recording the podcast. My feelings on things have definitely changed. And how comfortable I am expressing myself and that kind of thing. What has that been like for you? Is it something like you spoke about with your parents a lot when you were a kid, or like if you've got siblings, is that something like you guys would maybe speak about with each other?
This came up recently with my mum because she says that one of the things that she regrets the most about her like parenting was that she never spoke to us about identity and being mixed and all that kind of stuff, because she was always very clear on what she was, and she had her dad and she had her mum, and she was like, I am this and I am that and I'm set on that. And so she like apologized to both of us really recently, and I was like, no, I mean, everyone's just doing the best they can.
Exactly.
Like she is an amazing mum, so I don't even see that. But yeah, growing up, it was I guess I was confused, right? Like,
yeah,
if I had to fill in a form at the doctors or wherever, and it says tick a box, black, white, mixed Caribbean, I literally would put something different each time. And for the longest time, I would just put Caucasian. Right. And I if I'm being honest, would feel embarrassed to put mixed, because I feel like they would laugh. This is what I felt at the time. They would just laugh and be like, well, you're a white girl. Why are you ticking this? So, but I never voiced that. I just always just had that in my head. So I think growing up, I went through a few things, but I didn't ever voice them. I didn't really understand if they were affecting me or how. And it's definitely something that I've been accessing probably for the last maybe like 10 years rather than as a child. But there were things that would happen growing up that were interesting. that definitely like made me realize that I was different, or that something was different in my family, you know. And
you didn't talk to your mum about those things, or your dad? Like, you never kind of...
No, I guess we would just laugh about it. Like, I maybe we did. My memory isn't the best, if I'm being honest. Yeah. But, I don't want to like say, she never did this and that.
Passed,
maybe she did, but little things like, you know, well, apparently when I was a little baby, my mum was holding me, and, you know, this was like, I had like really light blonde hair and very pale skin, and my mum was a black woman and was holding me, and like some lady came up to her and was like, came up to me and was like, oh, does your mum know you're here? Like kind of suggesting that she had taken, and things like that happened quite a lot. My sports day at school, I ran a race and I ran way too fast. My little legs went way too fast than my body could handle, and I just collapsed at the end. My God. Everyone was like crowding around me, and my mum came over and was like, come on Bex, let's go, I'll take you home. And the teacher just like stopped and like put her arm across me and was like, do you know this woman? And it's like little things like that aren't necessarily like race isn't spoken about, but had that have been a white lady, I can't see why. I'm just so sure that of course that was why, and my mum felt that too. So there was a lot of things like that happened growing up, but I didn't really know how, I still don't know really how I processed them at the time.
But I mean, weird, I imagine, you know, because at the end of the day it's your mum. And when you're young, you don't understand any of those things. Your family is your family.
Exactly.
I can definitely relate to like similar experiences where people don't necessarily realise my family is my family, and it's very kind of odd looks and odd... they stare. And also like strange reactions. But I think, you know, when you're young, you don't really know what's going on, and also you're not really used to assessing why anybody's reacting to you in any way, so it's not something you probably process.
I remember laughing about it actually with my mum quite a lot. Like when they did that to my mum, I remember I was like half like knocked out, but I was like giggling because it was funny. But thinking about how that must have felt for my mum, that's not funny. Like, she did laugh about it also, but I can imagine if that was me, I would have been
you'd feel
frustrated,
offended,
and just like annoyed. It's just, So I think things like that would happen quite a lot growing up. I remember when my best friend met my mum for the first time, my mum dropped her home. And then the next day she came into school and was like, so your mum's black then?
You're like,
So it's like, cool.
At least it wasn't like, because I think I used to get quite a lot, oh, so you're adopted.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so at least it wasn't that.
Yeah.
That's horrible.
Oh, wow.
I mean, I think... I don't know, I think it's so much easier to brush things off when you're younger. Like when you're young, you can just let it all roll off your back and you're just kind of like, whatever. But, you know, as you get older, these things, and that's why, you know, you mentioned like, imagine how your mum felt. We've heard from a lot of people on the podcast, you know, about like from parents who, really struggle with those interactions and those kind of moments where they're not identified as their child's parent, and it must feel really scary.
100%, yeah. And I feel more sensitive the older I get to all these things. At least I notice them more. So
yeah, exactly.
it can't be easy. But I've gone on a real like roller coaster with it, and I think I'm in a really good place, better than I was maybe like 3 years ago or 5 years ago. And if we would have done the podcast in that first year, oh my God, I was in a whole other not great place with my like identity.
Yeah, no, I can imagine. Like you said, I mean, like you say, it's been a journey, and I think we all go through different phases, and we all like, yeah, sometimes we like feel really like stable and like okay, and then other things, I know for me, like I can just read something or read a comment or read something and it just kind of knocks me a little bit. But I'm interested also about, do you have a sister?
Yeah, I have 2 sisters.
2 sisters.
Yeah.
And is it something that you guys have spoken about together, or?
I speak about it quite a lot. So I have 2 sisters. One that is 2 years older than me, same parents, and she looks just like me, or I look just like her. Yeah. But she just looks more mixed and has more mixed features. She has darker skin. She has brown hair, brown eyes. Like,
Oh, wow.
She's unmistakably mixed.
Right.
Quite well, like she's in like the. I don't know. Some of her friends refer to her as the black friend. I'm like, oh, like she doesn't. She's not like. I don't think she would say she is black. Actually, I don't know. She also has had an interesting journey, and I think she's still on that too. But like, but her and I have started speaking about it a lot more recently. And my oldest sister has a different dad, who was fully black as well, so we're kind of like a little like a gradient. So technically she's not half as well. We've already grown up together. She's like my whole sister. So those labels. So we all have different complexions and different experiences, and I have spoken about it with the older sister a little bit, but I think more so with the one that's closer to me in age, because I think we've had more similar experiences, because we have the exact same mix. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, of course.
So but at the same time, me and my sister always joke, because she looks more mixed, but I live a more mixed life in a way, because I'm like involved in that. Yeah, like she feels like she lives quite a white life, and that certain hairstyles she doesn't think she can pull off and stuff. She's like, but you could, and I'm like, but I can't do that. She's like, yeah, but you're in that world, and I don't know. So we grew up on reggae music, so we love it. But like, I am deeper in the world than I think anyone in my family now, because I just became like really obsessed with the culture and the music. So
I'm glad you brought that up, because I love music as well. And like growing up, I never felt like, I mean, something like reggae was not something that I really listened to, apart from like my dad would play like Bob Marley, I think, loads, and he felt like really connected to that music. But it wasn't something that I felt super connected to growing up. Obviously, as I got older and I learned about the history, and I learned about why it was significant, I cared a bit more. Whereas for me, I feel like you and I maybe have had opposite experiences, where I felt like I was really into what would be stereotypically white music, like emo and like alternative and like punk and stuff. Obviously, knowing what I know about you and your love of reggae, it made me think like, oh wow, I was like, I feel like we would have had like really opposite experiences, where people make assumptions and presumptions about what you're like, your knowledge, like, and also I guess the type of person that you are, because of the interests that you have.
Yeah, but also the way that you look.
Yeah,
obviously.
and also the way that, combined with the way that you look. Yeah, what has that been like for you? Like,
it's been a lot, and like I said, like, I think I'm in a way better place with everything now.
Yeah.
So I can say like now, like, it's cool, but going into the reggae industry, like as a newer DJ, where I was completely unknown.
Right.
Not that I'm like a massive deal now or anything, but like I think I have been around long enough that like more people in this scene knows who I am.
Yeah, you've got your connections and your community and stuff.
Yeah, but and it does still happen now if I'm playing at like a new night or something, but I'll turn up and you know the other DJs are just like, you're playing, and I'm like, yeah. One guy literally was like, are you gonna play reggae? And I was like, yeah, bro, it's a reggae.
Okay, yes.
Play Britney Spears because I've got blonde hair. It's so wild. So I get a lot of that, and I get a lot of people giving me attitude or, you know, negative vibes when I turn up. But then afterwards, I've had people actually apologize to me for being rude, and then also just be super nice to me after that, like super nice. So that's a funny one to navigate, but I had this feeling that I always have to prove myself, and so I put this extra pressure on myself that everything that I do, not even just DJing, but it has to be like amazing, otherwise people are gonna either come for me or think I'm, you know,
basically your card will be revoked.
Yeah.
I think we all have
I relate to that.
But I definitely can see how that would be so much more heightened in the environments that you're in, and in those instances. Like, it's hard enough when you're asking an audience to like approve you before you start, or like during your set, your performance, your talk, whatever it is. Like, you know, anyone who's like in that world knows that one of the most important things is to basically get your audience's approval as early as you can, get them on side, and basically then you can all have fun. And like, but until that happens, it's techie.
And you know what Jamaicans are like as well. It's like, turn up and everyone's like, all right, you gonna pay me? And then they'll start off with a little it can be intimidating stepping into those spaces, but I'm like a good DJ. You know what I mean? So I have to remember that, but I feel nerves now, like quite often when I do those kinds of sets. When it's how do you navigate it? Do people ask you like straight off the bat, you know, like, or do you feel like you're waiting to tell them about your ancestry and like about your like family, or are you just like, fuck it, you know, think what you think, I'm a good DJ whether you know or not that I'm mixed? I guess it depends on the situation. Like our mutual friend said to me the other day that apparently after I threw a party, like a deadly night, and it was reggae and dance. And apparently I don't remember this, but somebody came up to me and was like, "But you're white." Oh, but you just did that set. You're white. And apparently I said something like, "Oh, nothing gets past you." I honestly. Like. In that moment, I don't think I felt like I had to say
anything. You kind of made a joke of it.
Sometimes you do.
Yeah.
But I do have a want for people to know it, that I'm not like I have this fear. I don't want anyone to think I'm like a culture vulture or anything like that, or like appropriating. And I find that whole conversation fascinating. Like
me too.
So fascinating.
So. And sometimes I don't know if I am or not, because I am mixed, but I also have white skin. And so, oh God, I feel like I'm all over the place with my answers here, but I'm like,
not at all. I think everything kind of ties in together because it's so linked to not only how we look, but how we grew up, how we were raised, the environments we were put into, the environments we continue to navigate as adults, because we often encounter people who didn't have families that looked like ours. So like you wouldn't get it. And I don't expect you to get it, but I relate to the feeling of being like, I want to oftentimes I feel like I need to get out in front of it so that I don't have to do any more work than I feel like I'm already doing.
Yeah, and we know, like we were saying offline, that people have their judgments, like their pre-existing judgments.
Right.
And that there's like rhetoric flying around, like I was saying before we got on, like, you know, I saw something last week where someone was basically saying, like, if you have a white mother, then you're like this, and like, you know, we joke about that in the community and da 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 da. And it's like, well, because you already know there's those pre-existing judgments, obviously it's going to make you feel a type of way, like you're going to be a little bit, you know, anxious.
Yeah. And defensive. I'm defensive sometimes.
Yeah.
I feel like I have to be, because it's been made clear to me that like no one is gonna defend me, so I'm like, I need to defend myself.
I need to defend myself. Always ready.
I'm like, oh, who's gonna come for me?
I don't know if I feel like that, but I think, and I speak about, like, I wrote a little bit about this in our book, funnily enough, our editor didn't get it. So I was really frustrated because I was talking about how I think generally as a person, and Nicole will always say, like, I'm really private. I don't see myself as private at all. Like I thought before you told me that I was really private, I was like, oh, you know, I wear everything like on my sleeve, and like, you know, I'm
tell everyone everything.
I'm like friends with everyone and like tell everyone everything. But apparently not. It's been brought to my attention. But I think like more like when I tried to like talk about it in the book, it's like, well, I've kind of developed this way of like sharing about myself that I'm never like inauthentic, and I'm never dishonest, but it depends on like who you are as to whether I'm going to share a lot with you and like how quickly, and like it will be a gradual thing as to like how I release the information, just because I'm aware, like I'm super aware of like how judgmental people are.
And not everyone deserves that part of you.
Yeah, that's true.
So
yeah, that is so true. And when it's like people on the internet, I mean, I don't know if you knew that person or not, but like they're saying, oh, if you have a white mum, then you're this and that. It's like, oh, it's so annoying, because it's like, how can you? Everybody loves to put people in a box and label it, and it's like, if you're this, you're that. If you're this, you're that. And it's like, that is just, how can we, in this day and age, that still be the train of thought? Like, it is so much more nuanced than that. Every single person has a different experience. So like, but I get that all the time. Like, well, you're this and you're that, and then so
it's really frustrating. And it's like, I don't have a white parent, but even I read that and I thought, how painful. I was like, that's actually really, like, it's like so dismissive, and again, it's like we're not allowed to have empathy for white people, because I was like, as a white mother to a black child, to a mixed child in any way, you would also be like, oh wow, so I'm not doing a good enough job, clearly.
Or it's my fault.
It's my fault that people are going to reject you because of me. Like, that's not cool.
Yeah. Do you think that you have more empathy and understanding for that now, like after years of the podcast, or do you think that you would have always felt away from like seeing that?
I definitely have a lot more empathy and understanding from doing the podcast, for sure. I think in the past I probably, again, to be fair, this is the first time I'm seeing this kind of stuff because of the internet, I think, and because of places like Twitter, and because of places people feel like they can just voice whatever thought they have in their minds.
I'm wondering.
Yeah. But because, even the concept of being biracial was not something that was ever brought to my attention growing up until I moved here. No one was ever like, you're the biracial one. I was just another black girl. So like, I didn't really, not that I didn't know that I was mixed, because obviously I know my own family, and I can see, and I felt those same feelings of like filling in these forms and not knowing what to do. But I feel like moving to the UK, and I'm not saying it's a UK issue, but like those things were brought up to me and like in a completely different way. So I feel like in the past, maybe where I would have felt like, oh, I was in on some kind of joke, now since doing this podcast and having these kinds of conversations, I'm like, actually, this is really harmful. Like, this is such a harmful way to talk about people, and it's not helpful in any way.
Yeah, I think the UK does have issues in this area.
You think?
Yeah.
Like, I'm not saying the US is perfect. That's why I'm just caveating that.
I think this is probably a whole nother episode.
Yeah,
But
true.
That's a whole other conversation.
I want to pull it back to like the whole labels thing, because we have a chapter in our book which is called we need to re-examine the phrase white passing. Have you like come into contact with that phrase, that label?
Oh, yeah, all the time.
Yeah, and like what do you feel about it?
To be honest, I've only really been aware of it like post 2020.
Okay.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of the sort of mixed race conversations and experiences were like coming to light like after George Floyd died.
Yeah.
And not straight after, but like a little while after, and mixed people started to feel like they could share, you know?
Yeah,
and,
of course.
And I don't know, maybe people called me that before, but I didn't really like
Register.
You didn't pick up on it, yeah.
It doesn't sit right with me, and if someone does say that, I'm like, I don't feel like that's the best term to use. But people don't use it in a way they don't mean it to be hurtful or harmful, but obviously the context of it is not great, because it's like, oh, you passed, well done, oh yeah, you're on our side, you're right. I feel you. It's a really weird one. I don't have a phrase for it. I don't know what I say. I'm just like, I look white and I have white skin, so I still haven't really even found the right terminology for what I am. Because
I think that's such a and I think it's hard because a lot of the times we want to be able to describe ourselves and not only find the right words but find the most succinct way of explaining things, so you don't feel like you're doing too much over explanation. But I've always felt like that phrase never sat right with me either, because it also now I think has become too much of a phrase that is tied up in being mixed. It's like anybody can fall under that. It's like, what is the spectrum of passing that people are using? Like, it's become too much of a term that's being thrown. Like a catch-all, for sure.
Like, I can't remember who it was, but like there was a moment when like literally everybody who was mixed is being labelled as like white passing.
It's weird.
And it was such a weird moment, because it would be like, obviously this person is clearly like not white. Yeah. So why are you calling them white passing? It's just really
another term for light skin.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, I think you're right about that as well.
Yeah.
But even that too, I think a lot of these terms and phrases and descriptors have become like dog whistles to me. I'm like, anytime I hear something like that, I'm like, oh God, here we go. I'm like, what's being said now today?
What's the new word? For sure.
Exactly.
I think to go back to like not knowing how to identify, like to self-describe. I think that's a really interesting one, like, and something we need to get better at, because I don't think we're like often given the opportunity to self-describe. Like oftentimes people have already like given you a label, like told you like you're this, you're that. So I think we probably need some practice. But I was watching, I know it's not the same because obviously he's not mixed, but did you see that episode? I think it was like, I think it was like the Yinka and ZZ Mills show, and White Yardie was like, and I was like, I really loved that moment and his response, because I was just like, that feeling of being like, I know who I am, do you know who you are, like coming at me with these like stupid questions.
Gosh, I felt very proud.
I don't either. I'd like to though. It's like,
it's very uncomfortable to watch, and I even brought it to my therapist. I sent it to my therapist.
Did you?
I was like, look at this. Look at this, and you talk about it all, like the mixed experience all the time. And just identity, and that was a mad moment, but important, because then the way it just blew up online, and I could see in the comments all the Jamaicans being like, this is a Jamaican man. Wow. He's like, and the difference between, you can be white Jamaican
Of
So
course,
he's not saying
yeah,
I
yeah.
am a black man.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
people were treating him like that's what he was saying.
Yeah.
So that was super interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, for me, I bounced between wanting to be able to label myself as something. Like for a
Yes,
while,
yeah.
my management used to always take the piss out of me because every week I would change my Instagram bio, and it went from things like it was like bisexual, biracial, neurodiverse, something.
I love that.
Like all in my bio, and then it was like flags. It was just always different things.
Yeah.
But just also having conversations with people, it's like, well, why do you need to define for somebody else?
Right. Exactly.
So, which I also kind of think is quite powerful. So I bounce between that, and also what I've realised is it doesn't matter what you say,
Yeah.
because people are still going to be like, no, I think you're this.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I've had that a lot where people are like, we were talking about this off mic before.
Yeah.
I can't remember what the topic was specifically, but like I was speaking about it on a podcast with a rapper who is mixed race, and we were just talking about our experiences or whatever. And then on the YouTube comments, somebody went, "Who's this white girl?"
Yeah.
And then somebody else replied and was like, "Bro, she literally says in this that she's mixed race." He was like, "I don't care what she says, that girl is white."
Oh, wow.
I was like,
Yeah,
I
exactly.
get
It's
that
just
quite a
literally
lot.
that simple. It's like, you're right. No one
Yeah.
cares what you're actually saying.
Yeah, and so that's what makes me, when I think about identity, I'm like, so what is identity? Because people seem to think it's whatever they think you are.
Yeah.
Like, it's how they identify you rather than how
Right.
you see yourself. So, and I think that's why I haven't really come up with a best distinct way of...
I love that. I've never actually considered that as a thing, but
What?
you're so right. Yeah, as in like it's what other people think you are rather than how you actually identify and how you feel about yourself.
I'm sure that's what people take on all
Yeah.
the time, because like that is definitely a truth of, it's particularly the mixed experience.
Yeah, for sure.
And obviously people love to have labels and to put, and boxes and stuff that it's easy. And that's why, like, I think inherently it feels like stressful for people.
Yeah.
Because they're like, I can't place you. Like,
Yeah.
I have to place you.
Yeah.
Like, how will I go on if I don't place you? Like, I feel like that is why people are so desperate to just be like, okay, cool, you're this. And now I can, sleep at night.
Sorry, I just thought about what you were saying with the Instagram bio thing, and it reminded me again of a lot of people joking about mixed people in general, like the flags. And we were talking about the flags and stuff, because I also have flags in mine, and it made me laugh because I was like, oh my god, I am that person. But it made me think as well. I was like, as in they're like, oh, mixed people are always trying to signal their heritage because of these flags, and it doesn't even, obviously it doesn't have to be flag country flags. It's other, like, sexuality and like other flags too. But is it not also because we're just proud? Like, we're proud and excited. Like, could we not just be happy about it and that be okay?
Yeah.
It's not a way to be like, I'm special. It's just like,
Oh, I feel like it's
like,
more,
I'm excited about it.
yeah, and also it's also definitely a way for people to be like, don't misidentify me.
Yeah.
Like, basically,
That too.
like,
Yeah.
it's like,
It's both. Yeah.
it's like the equivalent of pronouns, like,
Yes.
maybe, like,
Yeah.
please don't misidentify me. Like,
Right.
this is
It's
how
super-
I identify. So let's just start there.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true.
Maybe, but yeah. Speaking of which, you mentioned obviously like you've had all these ways of describing yourself in your bio, and like you've changed, and you said like your management is like always like laughing about this, but I know because you've told me that you've had like this moment of like evolution or growth, and when it comes to like your sexuality and change, and like how do you, because we've talked about this quite a bit now, like the intersection, like the intersection between like race, gender and sexuality, and like how that can play out in different ways.
And in different environments as well, I can imagine.
Like when you're mixed, and I feel like there's another layer there as well, like when it comes to, you know, you being misidentified and the work that you do, which is like heavily involved in like the community and the culture. And yeah, I'm not unpacking it well because it's not my story, so
yeah,
I guess
no, you're bang on. I don't know where to start with it. So wait, let me take a beat.
Yeah,
Take
take
a
a beat.
I'm trying to like work out where to start with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I identify as bi or pan or queer or whatever you want to call it. But
Yeah.
I don't really care about gender basically. But like I for a really long time was ending up in relationships with men and men who weren't comfortable with me being bi or mentioning it. So when I became single in like 2020, I then was like, that's when I really entered like my queer phase, I suppose. And like fully, like I've always been bi, but I didn't feel like I was able to live it out so much.
Of course.
And so I from then that's where I put the flag in my bio, and I did a post, and I guess it was kind of a coming out. Like I always felt like I was out because all my friends knew. It wasn't like a secret,
exactly.
but I guess I had never spoken about it online because I had boyfriends, and a lot of times they weren't really comfortable with it. So I was like loving that freedom, and I felt so liberated and like I was my full self.
Yeah.
What was
which
the
was
reaction
awesome.
like though? Because obviously for
Great.
you weren't like, oh, I'm coming out, but then maybe for your audience and like for people who follow you but are not like in your life directly, it more felt like that. How did people react?
I didn't actually really get any. I think I had like maybe one or two people who were like, "Oh, you're just doing it for attention."
Yeah, okay.
You know, them ones where they're like, "Oh, you're not really bi," and stuff like that.
Got me again.
But strange.
It's bizarre. But most of it was it was all good, all great responses. My following is interesting because I'm a TV presenter. That's what I've been doing for the longest time. I've been doing that for like 11 years, and that is how I grew my following. And now in the last, I would say maybe 6 years, I mean, I've been DJing reggae for 9 years, something like that, 8 years. But like I've really like been in the field for, let's maybe say 6. I don't know, I'm just throwing out rough numbers, but a while.
Yeah, exactly.
And so, I think with posts like that, I see it as like I have two separate followings.
Right.
And like everybody from the sort of commercial side was coming through and being like, "Yes, queen." and I don't know, at that point, I wasn't even thinking about the other side at that specific point. I'm just thinking about this now. But like at that point it was all love.
Right.
And then I think over time, because this was around 2020, and there was a few things that were happening in the industry at that time. A couple of artists came out, Jamaican artists came out, and one was like another one was like headlining an LGBTQ plus festival, which was like unheard of for like a big artist. And just seeing the reaction to that online from not only artists that I like and look up to and respect, and also people that I'm in rooms with consistently and people that I interact with, or acquaintances maybe I thought were friends, interacting with those hateful posts, sharing, liking, commenting, stuff like that. And I would go into holes of like just scrolling and just seeing who liked it that I know, and that really got to me, and I started to realize, oh, maybe I'm actually not as safe as I thought I was. because I thought I was safe because I knew I was queer before.
Yeah.
But, and everyone was accepting me and it was all fine. But actually, it was a bit more, I was realizing it was a bit more of an issue. And I also had some like some tough conversations with people who were close to me and Rasta. And like for anyone who doesn't know, within Rastafari, it is, you know, intrinsically, it's so deeply rooted that, you know, you cannot be gay.
Right.
It's like deep. And so yeah, I had a conversation with someone who was super close to me, and they brought to light some things I was not aware of, that maybe I think I was naive to not be aware of those things in hindsight, but like they were saying that, you know, some people in the industry think that you fly the flag too much, and they were questioning if I should be rolling with you, and you know, maybe you should think about what you're talking about online and stuff if you're going to roll with this artist or this artist who have you know, reputations to uphold within Rastafari. And it wasn't just that moment. It was again, like, you know, I was saying, all those artists were coming out, and there was a lot going on in that year. And so that was it was very hard. And that specifically in that conversation, I was in bits. There's so many layers to this. It's like being a bisexual person. It's like, oh, you're not fully gay, you're not fully straight, and you're being mixed, and oh, you're a little white. And it's like I don't fit into a like community.
It's like no support network that's like 100% yours,
right?
To go to, and to be enveloped in, and to be safe in, basically.
Exactly. So I have had this otherness, I have this imposter syndrome, and that's just like surrounds my thoughts like a lot of the time. And I still, if I'm being honest, I'm in that space, but I'm trying to just push through it and hope that over time we're going to see more and more progress in regards to like homophobia and Jamaica, and like it's not going anywhere anytime soon, but we are seeing progress that we have never seen before, like artists coming out. I mean, that's a madness. Like Coffee doing a super queer song in a gay club with you know, like women dancing around her, and like that. I was so inspired by that. I wrote like a full article, not for anybody, just for myself. I like reviewed it.
I do that sometimes. Do you? Not going anywhere.
Like, I think that's really important to do. That's great.
So like that's huge. Like all these things that are happening are huge, and so I have to remind myself quite often, like I want to be on the right side of history, and I want to be someone who stood up and also empowered other people to feel like they can be themselves and talk about it. And like in the few rare times I have spoken about it, I do get messages from people being like, thank you. And like great. This has like really done something for me, and like I guess that's kind of why it's important, and that's what we want. So I try and like push through the fear around it, because a big part of me is still like, even now talking about it, I'm like, oh, but what if someone sees this and then they're not going to book me for something, and because, you know, like I do have those feelings. But then I know what you're going to. Do I know what you're going to say? Are you going to say, do you even want to be in that?
No, I was not going to say that, because I know that you would. I feel that you would never like revoke, like you can't leave, like this is part of you, like you know, exactly. And also like as somebody who like it's a part of you, it's part of your ancestry, it's everything that you've built. Like I imagine that's not really a question.
There's so much to that industry that is really hard to deal with, and also it's like one of those things where there's no money in reggae and dancehall. So if anyone ever like questions like my authenticity, I'm like, I could just be a dance DJ and I would be a millionaire by now. But like, it's clear that like anyone who is a reggae DJ in that industry, it's because they love it, because they have to love it, because that's why they're there. It's not, no one is going to be like, there's very few worldwide DJs in that world. So
obviously you've mentioned that like this isn't the space where you're going to break through and make your millions and billions of dollars. But I think it speaks to what we were talking about earlier about, again, this idea of like, what does it mean to be culturally appropriative? What does it mean to be a culture vulture? What does it mean to use your privilege? Like, you're literally in a space that you love so much, and you've built your career off of something that you love because it's a part of you,
but also because it needs to be platformed,
and it needs that.
And you are through your work giving platform to artists and music that just wouldn't, let's be honest, have that platform. So
exactly.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because I mean, obviously, like that, like I said, that whole intersection bit is, I think, like so interesting, because in a way, you know, you could look at your life in this world of your career and be like, you know, you've been working so hard to establish yourself, establish your belonging, and you're like right to be there, and your identity in that space. And then obviously, like, being bi, you are in a way, I don't know if it feels like you're having to like justify in all areas of identity. And then it's like, you could also just like, people might think, oh, you could also just make a choice to pass in all these areas. Like if we're talking about the phrase passing.
Yeah.
I think that's an interesting...
Yeah.
Do you mean like if we're talking about sexuality,
race, you know?
Because it's not like you were saying about then you felt like you had to retreat and like take the stuff out and like not necessarily not acknowledge it, but like not point to it so much that people knew right away. It does. What is that making me think of? Like it makes me think of like this idea that people have about mixed race people in particular, and again this idea of passing, where it's like you get to be this person who like picks and chooses, like, and you get to be this like chameleon almost, and like that's why people feel uncomfortable, I think, a lot of the time. Like people don't like that about us.
You get to basically, I think people think like it's like devious.
Yeah,
and, like,
they
it's very
feel
much
like
still thought of like, that's why for me that term I hate it, because obviously it's rooted in like history of like actually people passing for safety reasons and to kind of to have a different life and choosing to do that, but then having to leave like everything behind. And
exactly. You've given up so much of your life for that.
It's something that like I'm sure wasn't taken lightly. And I think people still using that term in much in the same way as though we're still living in that scenario. So, you know, that those people that they're saying are passing are like doing this like devious thing. By not declaring everything to everybody. So it's just like, I don't know, I think there's a lot to unpick here, and I don't think I've done like a successful job of like getting to a take home, like, you know.
I hear what you're saying. And I think like, I don't know if I think this because it's true or if it's something that I worry, but I feel this about some people, that the way they feel about me. That's a weird way of putting it. That they think that I do too many things. I'm not like a clear enough like
proposition. Yeah,
like cool, you're a reggae DJ, cool, but you're also on MTV and you're interviewing pop stars,
right?
And you're also going to do this, you know, extreme sports thing with Red Bull, and you're going to do, you know what I mean? And it's like, but all I can do is just be authentically me, and I am a mishmash of a gazillion things, and like and you know, that's also my neurodiversity as well, just like being interested in so many things and like wanting to do this and that, and like
and try everything. And
if I tried to just push myself into one box, then it wouldn't be authentic. But it feels like some people want you to do that, you know, to be one thing, and I think the conversation is changing slightly now. I've been told in the past, like, you are too reggae, looking.
Okay.
Like not looking, but like my if you go to my
Like your
Instagram,
aesthetic, yeah.
it's like you're too reggae and we want you to do this more commercial stuff. And then on the flip
Okay.
side, I've also had people be like, you're not your mixed race identity is not clear enough, and like you're not really doing like
Basically,
purely
you're not
reggae.
black enough, so
Yeah.
And I
You
have
add that up.
yeah, that's definitely
Whoa.
come up. I don't know how deep I want to go into it, but like
Yeah.
I did have a experience in around 2020. 2020 was horrible.
wasn't
It's
it?
bad times,
Oh,
bad time.
it's
Yeah,
dark.
it's such a dark.
Just like the mention of 2020,
Everybody
everyone's
like gets
triggered.
flashbacks, and they're like, "Oh my god,
Yeah.
let's not talk about it."
And right in the thick of all that horribleness,
Yeah.
like I was given an opportunity, which was like essentially dream job for me, and it was like representing the reggae world on a global scale. Let's put it that way.
Okay.
And this was something that I've been working for
Yeah.
and towards, and still am. And so we were like spending a lot of months putting this thing together and building it around me and everything. But it was around the time that George Floyd died, and so with a lot of these big brands, they then realized that they had to look good, right?
Of course.
And so anyway,
I see where this is
thing
going.
got greenlit, and
my God.
the fee was
good.
The fee was agreed, and I recorded the first like 3 things, and I
Yeah.
told everybody, and then I got a cold call out of the blue being like, I'm gonna rip the band-aid, they're not doing it anymore. They don't need to do it anymore. And I was like, what do you mean? I'm doing it. I'm already doing it.
I've already done
Like,
it. Yeah,
what?
I've already
And
started doing it.
And it was the reasoning was because it's a global platform that your mixed race identity is not going to be understood in predominantly America, which is an interesting thing to speak about. Like that, they were saying that in the UK, if it was just a UK thing, it would have gone down absolutely fine, and people get it more, and mixed race looks different in the UK.
Yeah.
But in the States, it's like they won't get it.
They won't get it. They wouldn't get it now. They still
I
don't get it.
I would argue that in the UK, I think,
Yeah, because you were saying that earlier,
Yeah.
something along those lines, which I thought was interesting. But then,
or at least they would. I just don't think. I don't think the conversation has developed enough, and like I think
I don't think anyone's is, to be fair.
I think that now that could happen.
That's so interesting, though, that they said that.
I think it boils down to the way that company would look if they had someone
Yeah.
who looks white represented black music.
That
and
sounds
that's
more-
that.
And that's
And I get that, but I think the heartbreaking thing was I was given it and then it was taken away.
Of course,
You know what I mean?
yeah.
So, and it was something that validated me as well. I felt like, okay,
And then it was
I'm
ripped
here
away.
now. Yeah, and then it was ripped away in the middle of like everything else happening, and it was just horrific. And it took me a really long time to recover from that. I think I definitely still have that feeling of like this could be taken away from me.
Yeah.
Anytime I get a new job, I don't believe it's happening until the date. Until I'm there and the mic is in my hand or whatever the job is.
And does that stem again from this feeling of someone basically saying to you, actually, because of how you look or how people perceive you to be and the assumptions that they'll make about you, we don't want to look bad.
yes.
So we're going to have to take this away from you. Like, is that what that stems from?
Yeah.
Because it's not about the fact that you can't do it and that you don't have the knowledge and the experience.
Or the respect within the
Exactly,
communities
because
that are relevant.
you've been doing it, you've been here, like you've grown up with it, like you said, you've been in the industry for 10 plus years. So with our logical brains, we know that that is not the reason why anyone would tell you you couldn't do it.
Yeah.
And then having to then sit with the fact that it's all about image is like, that's not a great thing to sit with.
Did it also make you question, like, because you've said a couple of times, like, oh, you know, and then I wondered, like, did you question yourself? Did you say, like, am I not the right person? And do I not deserve to do this? And am I feeding into, you know, like, this idea that, you know, we get the opportunities and other people don't.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like I'm constantly thinking, am I taking someone's spot here?
Right. Yeah.
But it's so funny because it's like there's a lot of white men in the field too who don't feel that.
Wow. That's such a fair assessment. Yeah, that I also wouldn't have even considered.
I think it's important.
That's so important to
Say that
highlight. Yeah, exactly. In case you didn't hear the first time.
And I sometimes I ask them as well. I'm like, what do you feel? Like, because I want to know.
Wow,
like,
yeah. And they're just like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, they don't have that like imposter syndrome that I have, and I am actually mixed race. So it's so interesting. But I try to channel white man a bit more.
Yeah. It's so funny though. We also talk, I mean, you and I have spoken about this, you know, one-to-one, and I think we touch on it a little bit in the book as well. But we've also said, you know, as women, it does feel like this is a conversation we continuously have, to be like, I don't know that, and I'm not saying that mixed race men don't, you know, question themselves or feel, you know, they feel that imposter syndrome or anything like that, but I do feel like it can be something that women get often, we're put out in front of it all the time, and we're always the ones who get berated because it feels like that is our job to take that. It's our job to be like, oh, well, not me, that person, or like, oh, I shouldn't have this because of whatever reason, like, that's not for me, so I'll let you take it.
Yeah, well, for a start, you know, I think, you know, and when we've talked about like colorism,
yes, yeah,
it doesn't feel like men are having those conversations with one another. It doesn't feel like they're feeling pitted against one another in that conversation. I think it's an extension of that. Like, it's very like something that seems to be an us problem. Like, like we.
That's a you problem.
I've seen it, right? Is it just that men don't share so much and they don't express themselves in the way that women do? But they must feel it.
I think
it's also a patriarchal. You're right. I think it's a patriarchal thing, in that because they don't have to consider the way that they look as much as women. Then it's now become, like you said, it's like our job to take all of that.
The simple fact is that men's value is not held.
Yes.
Like solely in the way that they look.
Yeah.
Like starting from base level.
Yeah.
So
take it there.
Like, let's just go there. And women's is. So, you know, there's just so much tied up in that for us.
Yeah.
Like I was saying, who was speaking to you? Was it you? Sometimes because we speak so often, I'll be like, I say something, I can't even remember
who I was talking to.
It was you that I was talking to. But like in audio recording, obviously we're on video today, like I noticed like it's so much easier for people to share things, and I think this is more with women, and I feel it. Like if someone asks me to interview and I don't have to I don't have to be on camera, I automatically feel like, oh, I know I'm going to be more comfortable. I know I'm going to share more. I know I'm going to be liberated from like 50% of the worry being like, will I look right? It's not even like, will I look good enough? It's like, what is the way that I look saying?
Yes.
And will it match
what's it saying?
what I'm saying enough for me to be credible for the moment?
Oh my God, you're in my brain right now.
So that people accept what I'm saying and accept who I am.
It's so long.
It's just
so long. This is like
so
me
long
every day trying to work out what to wear.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
But, I mean, so that said, it's kind of I think it's just it's wrapped up in that, isn't it? Like, men don't have to worry about that. So, and I think when like the Mandem are together, I don't get a sense that they're like, oh mate, like bro, you took my spot because you're light skinned. Like,
right.
I don't think that they have. I think it's more a vibe of like, well, we're all black.
Yeah,
so,
it's like vibing for all black, but also like I don't think they feel the scarcity of opportunity the way that we do, in that it's easy for us to compare ourselves to one another. It's easy for us to feel pitted against one another. It's easier for us to feel like we're going to lose out on something in compared to somebody else. I don't know that not that they never feel that, but I don't know that messaging is something that's kind of been spit out at them. Yeah.
I don't know if we can keep this, but basically, I remember I was watching Allura Jack on a podcast.
Oh yeah.
And I can't remember whose podcast it was, like, but it was like one of the like main. It wasn't like 3 Shots but it was like one of those podcasts.
Yeah.
And I remember I was watching it, and I could see that he was nervous, and I was like watching it, thinking like it's fine, like just like relax, because like no one's gonna call you out and be like you're not black.
Yeah.
And obviously no one did.
Yeah, but you could tell he felt like he was waiting for it.
Yeah. I felt like.
Yeah, I was talking to AJ Tracy about this on a podcast a few years ago, and he was actually saying that he felt like he was always othered, and that people would always tell him that he wasn't black enough.
Yeah.
He wasn't hard enough because he was light skinned.
Wow.
And so he couldn't actually hang with the man then. But then the white people were like, and he couldn't relate to them also.
Yeah, exactly.
And he was saying that he feels like whenever he does something good, everyone's like, oh, he's black, black guy, he's doing good, black people. But when he doesn't, if something goes wrong or whatever, he's like, oh, he's not black anyway. Yeah. And so like he was saying that he's super aware of that.
Interesting.
And,
That's
so
and
interesting.
has found his own tribe of mixed race men.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which I thought was super interesting.
That's so nice, actually.
We need to get him on.
Yeah, for sure.
That's
maybe
really nice to hear,
also,
actually.
Maybe
because I don't think you ever hear that.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about that with him because it was a podcast for a sports brand and it was nothing to do with identity.
Okay,
so talking about music, but I found that interesting, so I wanted to ask.
Yeah, exactly.
It was a short snippet, but
But I am wondering also if that's a music scene like type of thing as well, because I don't know, like people that we've spoken to that are not in the music scene, I've never really heard that before. And I wonder, like, also because, like, obviously in the music scene, like, there's so much to image, and like it kind of is a bit like, I don't know, like being in school, because it's like cliques and different, like, you know, like types of vibe.
Yeah,
I don't know, maybe
I think he was talking about growing up though, like pre-music, but in terms of like curating his friendship group now, and they all happen to look like him. I think that's definitely like a more of a music based thing. But yeah, you should get him on.
Our book, The Half of It, is out in spring 2024 and is available for pre-order now.
The pre-order link is in the show notes, and pre-orders are so important for new authors, so please do go and grab your copy.
Deadly is a music platform that I created maybe about 7 years ago now, which is crazy.
Wow, yeah.
Sometimes I don't like to say that it was so long ago because I feel like it's not where I want it to be. And it feels like it should be further than it is for 7 years. But then at the same time, I also want to say that it's been 7 years because I've been putting in the work for a long time.
Exactly.
So I'm split on whether to say or not. But it's essentially, it started off as a video platform to shine a light on Jamaican music in all its forms. So live sessions, interviews, documentaries, stuff like that, basically. And so I started off doing it in the UK, so when Jamaican artists would come over, we'd shoot with them. But then I started going to Jamaica, and we would spend a week just like linking up with so many artists. One year we did 20 artists in 6 days.
Wow.
How do you even
how do you have the time?
in?
Yeah,
like,
I was like,
does
how do you have
everyone
time for
come
that?
to you? Because like obviously Jamaica's not a big island, but like getting across it isn't like
easy.
Yeah,
not that quick.
to be honest, most of the artists are around Kingston,
Yeah.
or like Portmore, Spanish Town.
Wow.
So, but what we would always say to people is, you pick the location, we'll meet you there.
Yeah.
Pick somewhere that either means something to you, or you know, you feel a place that you feel comfortable in, or even just somewhere that looks nice. But
we love this so much. I want to be a roadie. Like,
it's so fun. It is so fun because you get to see so many different places and meet so many different people.
Oh,
like
I love
we've shot in like beautiful mansions, and then we've gone into the depths of Spanish Town, a place that we would never ever have gone to.
Wow.
But we were in like a 6-car convoy with this like big dancehall artist called Governor, and it was sick. And that's like he's like the king of those ends, and so obviously we were treated very well, and it was just like amazing to see.
How do people respond to you in like those environments?
In Jamaica, well, it's weird. I feel like in Jamaica, I think Deadly is becoming like really respected and known.
I love that for you.
It feels weird. Like I feel like I'm like a celebrity when I'm there, because people like come up to me and like, I love what you're doing, keep doing it, and like I get way more of a reaction than I do in the UK about Deadly.
Right.
I guess because all the artists are Jamaican.
Sure.
We did a recent small short stint in Lagos for the first time, when we did a little mini series with some Nigerian artists, which is amazing. But that's the first time that we had done anything that wasn't Jamaica based. But that's my baby, and that is something that I've been trying to build into something that is not just a video platform. I want it to be a hub for Jamaican culture. But also expanding out into other islands, other cities, other countries, and like looking at the pockets of culture and music in all these different places. Making events, doing we did our first event last year, making it into a clothing brand. Like I have so many ideas for it that all kind of fit together. But the root of it is a video platform, and like I think it's something that is so important and is needed, because there aren't really I don't know how many platforms there are that are created purely around, or at least that hold Jamaican music at its core. Right. You know, you've got your link up TVs and your grime dailies and SBTV and stuff like that, but there's not really a like purely Jamaican one. Right. And I have my foot in the door of the TV world, so I'm like, cool, I've got some connections. Let's shoot something and make it beautiful. And like that's the other thing that I find really important. Like we're not just doing some slapdash quick thing. Like every session is like stunning. And like the quality is really good. And I think that's what these artists deserve, because they're so amazing, but there's just not and don't get me wrong, some of them are established. Some we do both. We do big artists, but I love shooting the new up and coming artists who don't really have any content. It's like giving them something as well. But it just feels like the most underrepresented genre that there is in terms of like in the mainstream. This tiny little island that has had so much influence on the world, and all these different genres that are like taking over now, it still doesn't get the credit that it deserves. It doesn't get it's not covered in the same way that everything else is. Jamaica, I think there's reasons why, but like it does deserve more, and I want to be a part of that, you know. And I want in years to come people to be able to look back at these artists, and you know, they go to Deadly to be like, oh yeah, that's, you know, Quebecer or Chronics, they did a session with Deadly, and like I've documented it. Like you can go back now and look for stuff with Bob Marley, there's hardly anything. So obviously that was the times, it's very different. But there's not that much. We have to do an exhibition. Let's do an exhibition. Oh, hell yeah. Let's talk about this. We'll take this offline. I definitely want to revisit this. Love to. So when you went to Nige, was it like, because obviously we're seeing so much crossover, and was that the aim in Nige, or were you just like branching out now into... It was both of those things. It was, I'm not going to lie, a real rogue, fairly last minute decision. And the reason why it happened was because my videographer, big up Tim Forrester, he's amazing. I put so much time and effort, but also money into Deadly, and it doesn't make anything. I hope one day, I hope it will. I want it to be a business, but like it's a love passion project at the moment, and it's the same for Tim, who shoots and edits everything, and he's amazing. So he was going to Lagos to visit a friend, and he did say to me, yo, I'm going to be there, I could bring my camera if you want to like schedule some shoots, like we could this could be our opportunity to branch out, because we had spoken about it before. And I was like, I was like, I don't think I even have any links out there, and I feel like no one's going to say yes. And I just had like, I wasn't feeling great about it. But anyway, I went through my emails and I was like looking at who I do know, and I started just emailing a few people for really big artists, and they all said yes. And I was like, oh shit, I should probably be there for that.
Yeah.
And then like 10 days before, I booked my flight, and without really putting too much thought into it, and then realised that like, you know, you have to have a visa, and you have to have about 15 documents to get the visa.
You also have to have a driver.
It's stress.
Yeah, all these things. So it was a really stressful lead up to this trip, but it was amazing. And, we ended up shooting with Tenny, Joe Boy, and a new artist called Falana, who's just like exceptional. And we haven't put any of it out yet.
I was going to say, like, where can we see this, and like, when are we going to?
It is coming soon. We are in the edit.
Since we're talking about music, should we talk about things that you're excited by, artists that you're really into right now, that kind of thing? I feel like that's something we need to know. I mean, I know, I was like, my music knowledge in this space is like so limited, so I want to know who I should be checking out.
She's ready to add to the playlist.
Exactly.
Okay, well, first of all, you need to stream and like the Deadly playlist on Spotify.
Yeah.
Because I update it religiously every other week with like, I go through every single new song that drops in the world of reggae and dancehall. Like, I will scour every playlist. I will scour, like, there's a website who just lists all of the releases, and I listen to all of them and then pick out the best ones, so that like other people don't have to just go and find them. Exactly. Do all the hard work. And it's good. It's a very good playlist. So first of all, I would say stream demo there. Okay. Who am I excited about right now? That's a good question.
And give us your desert island discs.
Yeah.
So funny, because I so like mentally prepared to talk about like identity stuff. I didn't even think about music.
You're like, what's music? Yeah. Who are these people? Yeah.
So I'm a big fan of an artist called Lila Ike.
Oh, okay.
She makes, I guess, a mixture of reggae and dancehall, but she puts like a new young spin on it.
Yeah.
And she's an incredible performer. She could freestyle like crazy.
Wow.
She's just like, I mean, I feel like she should be and will be, you know, coffee levels, if not higher. It's just a matter of time, really.
Yeah.
And she's under the umbrella of Protégé, who's like one of the OGs in this sort of reggae revival that we've seen in the last like 10 years or so. And yeah, he's responsible for bringing up like a lot of amazing artists. So yeah, Lila's a vibe. I'm thinking about who we're going to shoot for Deadly this year. Who have we got? Yo, I'm massively oversubscribed this year. I thought everyone would be saying no. So I just hit out like every artist, and everyone said yes. And I was like, oh, okay.
How are we going to do this?
Squeeze them all in.
And did you do it?
Well, we've not done it yet. So this is the shoots I'm planning.
Oh, the ones that you're planning for. Sorry, not the ones you did in
exactly.
Lagos.
Yeah. So, so I've got a long list. But there's a rhythm right now. Like, if you're not in the reggae and dancehall world, I guess you might not know about it yet. So I if I was saying this to like on a reggae podcast, they'll be like, but people that maybe aren't in that world, the rhythm that I'm like feeling right now is it's called the Dirty Money rhythm, which is an old school Vibes Cartel track called Go Go Club, and it's like iconic. Actually, there was a few different tracks on that rhythm. My money, ha ha. My money, ha ha. And Go Club, and they have been like, it's resurfaced basically now.
Okay, yeah.
All the new artists are jumping on that same old school rhythm from early 2000s.
Right.
So I would strongly recommend checking that out, because there's some sick versions on there, and like it's one of those ones that like every big artist is jumping on.
Using. Okay, yeah.
I wish we could just like slot it in.
I know. Yeah. Copyright.
Everyone from like Stefflon Don to Jada Kingdom, to Governor, to
Nigeri, like what's my favorite one is a guy called Naiji Boy, who I didn't even realize I hadn't heard of him before until this. He's blind and he's like incredible.
Wow.
Incredible. And on this rhythm they have a lot of dancehall artists who are just kind of like rapping and stuff. His melody on it is just stands out from all of them, and I have put them all on the Deadly playlist.
Okay, cool.
You can check it out there.
I love that.
But yeah, I'm also really loving Valiant right now, a dancehall artist. Valiant. But it's hard because there's a lot of tunes that I love, but that I feel like they're not promoting the right message. So it's a tricky one. So and that's something that I'm dealing with right now as I'm booking artists for Deadly, because what's really big right now is scum that music.
Okay.
And it's quite violent, and it's like
Right.
and it's not necessarily like the deadly message. But I do think it's important to spotlight artists who are at the top of the game in Jamaica right now.
Right,
So it's like finding a way to
do that,
show that and not necessarily promote the messaging.
How do you tackle that? Are you just like...
Well, what I'm wanting to do this time is I want to do a little mini doc about where dancehall is right now in Jamaica.
Okay.
And so rather than it being like, ta-da, spotlight, it's like, cool, so where did this come from? Why is this hot right now? What does it mean to you? Like getting to the root of it, going to their hometown and, just like trying to understand it more and take a look into it rather than being like, this is what we think.
Yeah.
I want to do a doc on your doc, on you doing the doc whilst you're doing it. Like, it's gonna be so sick.
We should. I love that.
I love that for
It's
us.
so fun.
Always ideating.
Exactly.